between writing and painting. It's a matter of feeling. Sometimes you feel like writing, sometimes you feel like painting.
Great Women in Art is a podcast produced by AWARE, Archives of Women Artists, Research and Exhibition, in collaboration with the INA, with the support of Maison Veuve Clicquot and the Ministry of Culture for Délégation à la transmission des savoirs et à la démocratisation culturelle.
Les grandes dames de l'art.
Great Women in Art. Great Women in Art.
Les grandes dames de l'art.
The podcast Les Grandes Dames de l'Art, Great Women of Art, gives a voice to the women artists of the 20th century. They talk about their work, their life, the world around them, and their achievements. Let us go in search of their presence, their secrets. Let us rediscover the hidden stories of women artists through their voices. After Leonora Finney, I would like to hear the voice of another great surrealist woman, Leonora Carrington. Everything about her is surrealist. The way she spoke, expressed herself, and lived her life, but also her worldview, as the word surrealist indicates beyond reality or next to reality. Listening to her is like entering a magic world where words lose their common meaning. Leonora Carrington was also an author and a painter. She was born to a wealthy English family. At the age of 15, she travelled to Florence, where she was amazed by classical painting. Back in London, she continued studying painting at Amédée aux Enfants' atelier. Her work was profoundly and voluntarily enigmatic. Her paintings were often composed to be observed from right to left, opposite to the Western reading direction. They often alluded to the past, the present, and the future all at once. In parallel, she was writing, and this upturning of everything can also be perceived in the texts when she mentions her habits and her thoughts. Her only radio interview took place during the program Entretien avec, Interviews with, a program that began in 1947. Many well-known individuals were invited. The rare women to be interviewed were usually actresses, until the 1970s when they started interviewing more of them. Carrington's interview took place in 1977 in Mexico and was conducted by Germaine Rouvre. The same year, another interview was published in the magazine Oblique for an issue about the figure of the surrealist woman. In 1977, the notion of a surrealist woman artist didn't exist. The expression surrealist woman alluded to the erotic gaze of surrealist men on their muses. It's only recently that women artists in the surrealist movement were given the importance they deserve. It took a long time for Dora Maar to emerge from Picasso's shadow. Leonora Carrington left England very young, when she wasn't yet 20. She met Max Ernst, her partner, in 1937 at one of his exhibitions. They fell in love and spent 3 passionate and creative years together before the war separated them. It's quite remarkable that she mentions the name of 3 other surrealist women artists that have only been rediscovered recently: Merritt Oppenheim, Leonora Finney, and Jacqueline Breton.
J'ai sorti de l'Angleterre avant la guerre.
I left England before the war.
Je ne sais pas, j'ai pas
And
été
I don't know, I
conscient d'une
didn't
rupture,
experience
j'étais
it as a
conscient plutôt
breaking off.
d'être attirée
I was just aware of being attracted to a life which, for me, was much livelier than the life I would have had in England.
C'était pas une sorte de décision comme
It
ça,
was not a
concrète.
concrete decision,
C'était plutôt
but
un mouvement
rather
vers
a
quelque
move
chose qui me
towards
paraissait
something
vital.
that seemed vital
J'étais pas-
when the other option was
j'étais
not.
attiré par la vitalité,
I was
le
attracted
mouvement
by the
surréaliste
vitality of the
d'avant
pre-war
parce qu'avant, ça
surrealist
m'a
movement,
apporté que je
because
vivais avec
first it
Max
got me
Ernst,
to
qui
live
était
with
un
Max
être merveilleux,
Ernst,
où j'ai
who was a
connu
wonderful
tas de
human
gens qui
being,
étaient
and I met
autrement
lots of people who were
que les
much more
gens
fun than the
autour de ma
people
famille,
around my
autour
family, who were
des hommes
businessmen
d'affaires,
and
des
society
femmes de
women.
société.
Not very funny.
Je trouvais le
I found the
surréaliste plus drôle.
surrealists more fun.
Following her breakup with Max Ernst, Leonora Carrington suffered from depression and was sent to a hospital in Spain. A few years later, she wrote about this period of her life in the fairy tale Down Low. She then went to New York for a year before moving to Mexico, where she spent the rest of her life. Her fascination for the country came from her cohabitating feelings of passion and terror. She explained these feelings being due to the presence of pre-Columbian gods. She could sense their terrifying presence.
It must be some attraction here. It's difficult to explain. It's Mexico that took me rather than me who took Mexico.
Taken by what?
Truly, truly and deeply. My sons were born here in Mexico. They went to school in Mexico. Chiqui, my husband, never left Mexico. And apart from that, Mexico. It's a tough question because Mexico is a very strange country and
But one with which you felt deep affinities, probably.
affinities and fear.
Peur.
Fear.
Oui.
Of what?
I can't explain it.
Ça remonte à
It goes
des
back
choses
to
très
pre-Columbian things mostly. The whole past of Mexico raises in me terror and a great interest.
très grand. Ça, c'est lié
It has to do with the religions of the Mayas, the Aztecs, and the Toltecs, all those people. Their gods were absolutely alien and absolutely terrifying, and yet appealing in a strange way. But actually, yes, I think that the Mexican hieroglyphs contain very precise keys to the archaic past of this planet. But I don't know enough about archaeology or anthropology to explain it to you. I'm quite ignorant.
So Mexico became your real country. Do you feel at home here now?
Yes, I feel at home like I would in a familiar swimming pool full of sharks.
During her only interview, Germaine Rouvre asks her about being a woman and the possible consequences on her career as an artist. Carrington is very clear on the difficulties of being an artist and a woman, especially due to the pressure surrounding motherhood. She also quotes Simone de Beauvoir. Let us remember that, in France, abortion rights were then at the center of feminist struggles.
The woman is an animal which biologically is a mother. Mère in French can mean mother or the sea. For me, it can be both, aquatic and maternal. So, if we are conditioned animals, women are animals conditioned for motherhood. We're deeply conditioned to ensure the survival of the species. This is very deep and powerful, much more powerful than willpower. So, if a child is sick, you take care of the child. You leave your painting and you take care of the child. You see what I mean? That's why I think in female animals, the act of love may be followed by the big tragedy that is the birth of a new animal. pushing us very deeply into the biological underground.
Très profondément. Et alors, évidemment, oui.
So yes, of course, it's very important.
Maintenant, je veux pas.
Now, I don't mean to say that men are better than women or elephants better than cats, I don't know. As women, we have been discriminated against, like the Jews, like the blacks, and like the pigs. And now we find the reaction wonderful, that we started to challenge. We were considered as inferior beings.
Why this discrimination?
Yes.
But she responded well by being both a mother and an artist, which is not always easy, surely.
No, it's not easy. It was not easy. It's not easy. Because we human animals have a sort of prolonged motherhood that stays with us until death.
The artist's inner life was very intense. She often questioned the obvious opposition between inner and outer life. Carrington lived her dreams as realities. She practiced guided hallucinations that she called hypnagogic visions. This technique, which was very used by the surrealists, was at the center of her artistic practice. She distinguished these visions that she had when awake and conscious, even though in an alternative state of consciousness, from dreams that were unintentional. Her way of thinking was complex and learned. You can feel that she knew psychoanalysis well, but that her visual language was built on other bases, like conscious guided hallucinations that helped her free her mind of the images of reality and construct new ones.
On pourrait appeler ça la vie
We could
intérieure
call it
de la
the
création,
inner
si
life
vous
of
voulez,
creation,
parce que
if you will.
extérieur et
Because
intérieur
exterior,
est beaucoup moins
interior
défini
is much less
qu'en
defined
prétend. On utilise
than we
ça
pretend.
plutôt par commodité.
We use the terms out
L'extérieur
of
pour la
convenience,
survivance,
exterior or
et-
outside for
et
survival,
l'intérieur, alors ça
and
peut
interior,
aller depuis
it may
un
range
mensonge
from
qu'on va
a
pas-
lie
on va
you
pas
want to hide,
faire savoir ou une vérité,
or
n'est-ce
some
pas, qu'on
truth
veut pas
you
dire,
don't want to tell,
etc. Et ça peut
etc.
aller de plus en plus
And it can
profond.
go deeper and deeper,
Réellement,
no?
il n'y a pas de
Really,
telle
there
barrière
is no
entre
such a barrier between the
l'extérieur.
outside and the
Bon,
inside.
alors là, je crois que, n'est-ce pas, qu'il faut
Now, I
commencer
think
à
we
se
should
mettre
start
un peu
agreeing
d'accord
on the
sur le mot.
words.
Parce que moi, je fais une distinction
I make a
entre
distinction
le rêve et
between
la vision
dreams
hypnagogique.
and
Maintenant, j'emploie des mots
hypnagogic
psychanalytiques,
visions.
n'est-ce pas? Pour moi, les
I'm
rêves,
using psychoanalytical words, right?
ils ont des qualités
Dreams, as you know, come in many
différentes.
different forms.
Ils sont très différents. Il y a beaucoup de rêves
Many dreams
qui
affect
touchent
different
des endroits
places
très
in the
différents,
inner
n'est-ce
space.
pas, dans l'espace intérieur. Mais quand vous parlez de récits de la porte
But
de
if
pierre,
you're referring
ça, c'est
to my
plutôt
book, The
des
Stone Door,
perceptions hypnagogiques.
those were
Ça veut dire
hypnagogic
que quand j'ai
perceptions.
écrit ça, j'étais
It
pas
means that
endormi,
when I wrote it,
j'étais
I
réveillé.
was not
Et
sleeping.
alors,
I
j'ai eu
was
cet
awake,
état où
and
la
I
perception
experienced that
hypnagogique
state
et la
of
conscience
hypnagogic perception
en
and
même temps,
consciousness
c'est-à-dire
at the same time.
c'était combiné avec la
Consciousness
conscience et
and
la perception
hypnagogic
hypnagogique.
perception
C'est
combined.
très technique,
Now
mais
that's quite
je crois que
technical,
vous-
but
je sais pas
is
si
it
ça vous
clear?
éclaircit.
Oui, donc ça n'était pas
So they were not real accounts of real dreams, but rather accounts of visions?
Plutôt des visions hypnagogiques.
hypnagogic visions.
Oui, c'était décrit comme rêve.
They were described as
Réellement,
dreams,
c'était plutôt
but
des visions
actually they
hypnagogiques.
were
C'est un
hypnagogic
autre
visions.
continent.
It's another continent,
Si
if
je
I
peux
may
vous le
say.
mettre comme ça.
oui,
Les rêves,
Dreams
c'est
are
autre
something
chose.
else.
totalement inconscient.
Totally unconscious.
L'hypnagogique aussi. est
The
totalement
hypnagogic state is totally
Seulement
unconscious
pour
as
une
well,
raison que j'ai
yet
jamais
for
pu
a reason I
préciser,
could
c'est
never
que-
explain,
parce que
it is
c'est
different.
très rare pour moi dans les
Because
rêves
It's very rare in real life to stumble on something I could do in painting or in stories.
In one of her most famous paintings, her 1937 self-portrait, she painted herself with an abundant mane sitting in a blue armchair in a big, strangely empty room. Her only companion is a hyena. There's a rocking horse on the wall, echoing the horse we can see through the window. This strange arrangement of characters reminds us of the sarcastic short stories she was writing at the time. She used painting and writing towards the same goal, making the invisible visible.
Between writing and painting, it's a matter of feeling. Sometimes you feel like writing, sometimes you feel like painting. Sometimes it comes in words and sometimes it comes in images. And painted images, to me, differ from written words, just like an egg differs from a string bean. I think the plane in 3 dimensions, the ordinary human plane in 3D, is more an effect than a cause. We are the result. I will illustrate that if you wish. For me, a house is an idea that we fill up with bricks. You're okay with that definition? That's all.
The bricks existed.
They are available, right? First comes the idea. When you build an aircraft, you have the idea of the plane, and then you fill the idea with some artifacts to make a plane, right? But first, it's an idea. Then you fill it up. But now you'll ask me, what's an idea? Well, a mental morphology.
Leonora Carrington truly embodied surrealism. One of the characteristics of the movement was the practice of a quirky, sometimes morbid humour called humour noir, dark humour in English. Besides, Breton actually chose one of her stories to his anthology on dark humour. At the age of 76, she published a short story called Le cornet acoustique, the acoustic horn, thought as an initiation to old age. In it, she amusingly describes how to find the right place of life at the age of 99. Like many other women artists, it took a long time for her to be recognized. Her first solo exhibition took place at the Serpentine Gallery in 1992 at the age of 75. Her second exhibition was at the Dallas Museum of Art in 2008, 3 years before her death.
Humor is a very peculiar thing. It has to be spontaneous. Otherwise, it's rather annoying. It's more like an act than an insight, meaning it shouldn't be prepared. If it's prepared, it can be really unpleasant and tiresome.
Coordinated by Mathilde Croix and the Aware team. Directed by Élodie Royer. Music by Julian Ogil. Credits Andrew Nelson. Sound editing Basile Beaucaire. Scientific advisors Catherine Gonard and Marjorie Micucci. Translation Beth Gordon. Translation of the artist's voice Eve Dair. French voice Camille Morino. English voice Lou Doyon.